Members of Mallard. Oh my gosh.
We're gonna get started, everybody. Thank you.
Wow, it's very nice. Teacher voice right there.
Colorado Regional School District Board of Education meeting, September 11th, 2024 at 6 p.m. First, like to rise for the pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, good evening. Before we do the agenda, Dr. Church has a few words he wants to say. for the board.
Yeah, I think that probably most, if not all of you are aware that we had a tragedy take place in our district, in our community, at the end of last week. Finn Gagnon, who was 6 years old at the time, and attended John Lyman Elementary School. And before that, first or for kindergarten and first grade, lost his life tragically in a house fire. So we would like to just observe a moment of silence in his honor and know that our thoughts and prayers are with his family at this time. Thank you.
Approval of the agenda. I would like to make a motion to amend the agenda to move the chairman update to after public comment. Do I have the motion? By Bob, second. I'll second. Second by Lucy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes. We'll move that right after public comments or approval of minutes. Number 4, presentations and recognition. In remembrance of its perfect day. Want to make a motion?
And we'll see, approve the agenda as modified.
No second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Right, free presentation with recognition, Strong School, we have some amazing students from Strong School here. And also in recognition of today being 9/11. We'll let Cheryl take that.
Yeah, I'm just going to turn it over. I'm really proud here to have all of these students from 6th through 8th grade presenting for 9/11. I am going to turn it over to Ms. Aspey, who is our student council advisor, who has done an amazing job, and Mr. Carco over here, who's been here to support them as well. Ms. Aspey, did you want to introduce them?
That would be lovely. First of all, thank you everyone for inviting us. We have before us tonight our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade student council. They've, considering schools just started, we kind of came together and we learned a lot in the last 3 meetings that we had. I'm going to introduce to you, we have Joshua Luca, we have Brady Braden, Stephanie, he has to say it 1,000 times. We have Skyla Valesky, we have Jenny Valletta, we have Campbell Rivera. Oh, here we go. We have Katarina Talbert Saleo. Very good. Okay, we have with Ellie Lowe, we have Trinity, and we have Carter Collins. And I'm Tracy Ashley, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, it's gonna pull it out. Okay.
We didn't rehearse this part.
Thank you guys so much for coming.
Oh my gosh, I'm just gonna follow your lead whenever you, pause, I'm gonna move it ahead.
Today, we're remembering November 11, 2001, 19 extremists, Al-Qaeda terrorists hijacked 4 passenger flight airplanes.
Two planes were flown into the World Trade Center towers in New York City. One hit the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., and another crashed in a field in Pennsylvania. 8:46 a.m. American Airlines Flight 11 left the North Tower of the World Trade Center. At first, many people believed it was an accident. Port Authority police began to evacuate the North Tower. 9:03 a.m. United Airlines Flight 175 crashed into the South Tower. At this point, people realized that these were not accidents. 4 minutes after the plane struck the North Tower, President Bush was notified. While reading to an elementary school class in Florida, he was informed of the second plane hitting the World Trade Center. At 9:02 a.m., the South Tower started to be evacuated. 9:31 a.m., President Bush calls the events in New York City an apparent terrorist attack. At 9:37 a.m., American Airlines Flight 77 crashed into the Pentagon, the headquarters of the United States Department of Defense. 9:42 a.m. For the first time in history, all flights over or heading to the United States are grounded. At 10:03 a.m., Flight 93 crashed into a field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania. The crew and passengers fought back against their hijackers, preventing the plane from hitting another building. They sacrificed themselves to stop the terrorist plans so that less people died. The events of 9/11 have had a lasting impact on our society and culture. Our country came together to fight against terrorism with new policies, safety measures, and military might, and were joined by our allies from other countries. Many brave people joined the armed services to help keep our country and world safe after the attacks. Impact on America. After 9/11, the SA was created. The SA is the airport security. It prevents people from bringing contraband and stops people from hijacking planes. 9/11 also put America into the war in Afghanistan and Iraq. Each year, remember this day and memorialize the people who lost their lives during this tragedy. A memorial was created at the World Trade Center site with waterfalls, lights, reflecting pools, and the names of the 2,977 people who died etched in stone. In one calorie pear tree survived the devastation of that day at the Trade Center and was planted at the memorial as a symbol of resilience and perseverance. The pools reflect the tall towers of the Manhattan skyline and shows that our city and people are still safe. The Strunk School Student Council would like to pay tribute to those we lost on this day, especially Bruce Eagleson, and those who served our country in the global war on terror to help prevent these tragedies in the future. Millfield resident Bruce Eagleson died that day at the South Tower while it collapsed. He had left the building while helping get his 10 employees to safety, but heroically went back inside to help evacuate others. We are still strong. Everything that happened on September 11, 2001 was truly awful. But one important fact to remember is that we didn't fall apart as a society. If anything, we became stronger. The Pentagon or World Trade Center were damaged, but no matter what happened, America survived and thrived. Now, a poem by Ellie Love.
On 9/11, too many people went to heaven. 2,977 people would never return home, their bodies buried with their memories and bones. The Twin Towers were a symbol of power and prosperity. They now remind us of sadness and barbarity. And on Flight 93, 4 terrorists took over the plane, so some passengers decided to take on the strain. 44 people were on Flight 93, and all of them lost their lives as they turned the plane away from Washington, D.C. Another plane to the Pentagon, where 125 innocent lives couldn't survive. That day, almost everyone lost someone, but we all stood up. Our patriotic spirit helped us rise above. And though we may never replace the lives that were lost, we can hope there will never be another attack like September 11th, 2001, and hold our heads up.
So that concludes our presentation. All of us would like to express our condolences. If there is anyone here, our administration, our teachers, parents who may have lost a loved one. It's hard to believe that it's been 23 years. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Miss Ashley. Ms. Gonzalez. Would you, Mr. Moore, want to know if you could see some of their posters?
Did you walk around and show us?
You want to go tell them about it? You can go back and
They were riding.
Like, Mom, no,
They were about ready to run away.
I'm getting a picture first.
Just walk by. Can't see.
You guys can just walk around if you
Just
want, if you don't
walk
want
around
to.
the
You want to be able to see them.
Like show and tell.
Go around and tell you.
So
They don't
Jenny,
think they're
if you would like, you can explain to them. So it all, this, of course, the first, I guess, incident happened in New York City. It was the first day of school. So Jenny in her poster is trying to illustrate what it must have been like, you know, and not only that, we had many people that were not at work that would have normally been at work. And so that is what her poster is showing. Skylar, can you give us an indication of what yours is showing?
So mine is showing that the first attack happened on the first, tower. And many people thought it was an accident, but then soon realized once the second tower hit that it was not an accident at all.
Mine shows the plane crashing in Pennsylvania, and it shows that it was heading to Washington DC to strike the White House, but the terrorists decided to crash it into a field in Pennsylvania to prevent the passengers from regaining control of the plane. Well, I don't want to take credit for this because I did not make it, but this.
So this is the story. You can read it. This is the Star Spangled Banner, which we initially was going to try to use music, but you have to have certain permission to use certain videos and whatnot. So we have just written it, and you can tell us.
Well, as songs.
Yeah.
It might be weird to.
Sometimes the words are weird when it's not in the song format, so we totally get that. That's
Right,
really neat though.
connected through red, white, and blue, and it can do all three of them with the lyrics.
I love that you guys brought art and music
Yeah.
and information all in one. It's amazing, so thank you.
Have you been to the museum?
No,
No.
I hadn't been, yeah, I went this summer with my boys. It's an experience, definitely.
Something you can ask your parents to do sometime.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. We appreciate it.
Did it, did it.
While we have Mr. Carco here, I know it's not, it's under strong, so technically, they just did an amazing trip, moving Camp Jewel to the beginning of the year. Mr. Carco.
Okay.
Yeah, back again.
Bless you. Wow.
Carco.
Not easy.
So they moved the Camp
Yes.
Jewel trip to the beginning of the year as opposed to the end of the year. It's been an amazing team building experience for the staff and for the kids. And he just updated us recently and it's really exciting. And I'm glad you guys had such a wonderful trip.
It was a great trip and we're looking forward to continuing to do it in the fall to just engage positive relationships and start the year off strong.
That has been happening in the district from as long as I can remember. I did
It's
not
the
have the privilege
longest-
to go, but a lot
It's
of
the
my
longest
friends. did.
ongoing field trip.
Yeah, wow.
At any level. So
We kept it, we just changed it.
we just slightly changed
Is
it
it still a Y camp?
It is.
It is, yeah. Yeah.
and the kids loved it.
Yeah, great weather too.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is it dark next to it? Like, way up?
Yeah. All right, moving on to B, our 2024 Teacher of the Year recognition. This is Erica Anderson. I know. I'll let that.
She's asked me 3 times if she has to stand up here. The answer is yes. It's my pleasure to introduce Erica Anderson as our 2024-2025 Teacher of the Year. I have a few words to say. It's the short one, not the long one, so we're good. So Erica is a highly respected member of the Coggin staff. She is known for creating interesting lessons that challenge, but also tap students' curiosities. Students who have graduated from Coggin over the past 2 decades often come back to report being extremely well prepared for their college coursework because of Erica. During her tenure, she has worked with her colleagues through multiple challenges with her team and as their team leader. Over the years, she has taken on new courses that foster positive relationships with other teachers as well as learners. She is respectful of people's diverse abilities and backgrounds, learners as well as peers. She has the courage to take on demanding leadership roles, such as a co-chair of NEASC, lead teacher, and team leader, but also has the courage to say no to a request when asked. It is an honor and privilege to introduce Mrs. Erica Anderson as the 2024-2025 Teacher of the Year.
Stephen Krebs and Meg.
They're beautiful.
And I have a box, so if you can transport it.
All right, I was gonna say a couple quick things. I won't take too. I just want to thank you for taking the time to recognize my commitment to the district and our students. I have spent half of my life at Coggin, and have always strived for excellence, whether that's rigor in the classroom, building positive relationships with students, or being a leader with my colleagues. Thank you all for your dedication to supporting our faculty and staff and addressing the changes of our needs of all of our learners. I'm looking forward to a year of reflection and growth with all of you.
We always know sometimes the most humble teachers are some of the best teachers, so I'm sure she is excited to be here. I do have something else to want to embarrass you in a public meeting, so I'll drop it by the high school.
Can I say something quickly too?
Of course.
Erica was so devastated to learn that we weren't doing an in-person convocation this year because she wanted nothing more than to address an auditorium full of people.
That was my no comment in there, in case you missed it.
All kidding aside, you did a great job on the video. Everyone thought you did a great job with that, so thank you for that.
Great. Number 5, public comment. Do you have any in-person public comment? Do we have any online public comment? I'll have a chance at the end of the agenda as well. And we will move on to my incredibly quick chairman update. Couple things to mention, our dedication for the lighthouse, the lighting and field house, and the complex, is Thursday, approximately 6:40. It's still sunset at that point. We're gonna do a ribbon cutting, and have the board and building committee, as well as our state reps and senators, that are able to join us there. Should be short. We're gonna, have a few words to say, and then do the ribbon cutting and let the soccer team get on to the second half of their game. I do want to mention, Benchwarmers reached out to one of their sponsors, Country Flower Farms, and they did like a beautiful display out by the field house, corn stalks and mums, and it looks really beautiful. So thank you to them. It's hard to get people to donate and volunteer, and they've always been such a great thing for the community.
I hope you all can come out, because this has been a long time. I mean, probably 15 years or so.
Yeah, in thought,
Yes.
10 in planning and probably 15 in thought, yeah.
Yeah, and I think also really got to thank Doug and Kim for approaching the legislators to get the money and thanking them for it. Those are all big things that have happened, and our building committee, with Kim oversight, has been able to do this under budget. Both the field house, the lights, and the 2 bathrooms out there. And hopefully we'll have some money left. We can invest in a little more bathrooms. But so this is
Something.
been a long, I got rejected, I think 3 times. Well, I tried for this in the past. So this is finally a really big achievement for the board, the building committee, and all those involved. Thank Lindsay and Doug and Kim for all their effort on this.
Yeah, we're excited to be able to come together. I think we've realized a lot this year that coming together on every angle, from the state to our board to the community, has done a lot and helped a lot with getting people to understand and support what we try to bring forward. So hopefully that MVP continues. We continue to do that. We're pretty excited, and even a lot of the state reps are excited to come. Our first selectman, one is going to be away, but the other one wants to come. So it's nice to see both towns and communities know that, you know, we'll be coming together. I'll make sure to have either whatever is read that night and as well as whatever pictures we take that night, we'll get up on our board communications site, work with Tina to do that. And yeah, on that, I hope to see everyone on Thursday. I think the girls soccer team is really excited. They have a new coach this year, so it's pretty exciting for a new team with new leadership to have this that night. And we're pretty excited for them. Hopefully a lot of the teams can come out in the community. Second, I want to welcome Jen back from Panama. I won't say too much. They're going to come back next month and give us a presentation on their trip to Panama, but Unified Sports got home at 2 a.m. last night. This morning, I'm sorry, 2 a.m. this morning. You know, she'll come back next month, but they had an amazing trip, and thanks to amazing work that they all do, there weren't any hiccups. And for you to take that many kids to Panama and have that many kids come from Panama in the spring and not have any issues and hiccups just shows that the planning was really dedicated, and we're incredibly thankful. I watched the whole trip unfold on the Panama Instagram that they had for Unified, and the kids looked like they had a magical time. So
Very much so, and I'm looking forward to sharing it with all of you next month.
Hope they all can come to the meeting.
I hope they can all come, if
Yeah.
not a representative, share of it.
probably pretty tired.
Today, I'm sure they're all very tired.
And the only thing I'll mention before we move on, we just wanted to be able to mention in a meeting, the November vote for the election referendum stated that it was at the Middlefield Community Center, and it's actually at Memorial School will be the voting for Middlefield this year. So we just wanted to be able to state that publicly and let everyone know. The Middlefield also will do work to make sure that is that's out there and the information's out there. I think it has to do with parking and some logistics, because they have a lot of districts, just like Durham, I think, has 3 districts for a presidential election. So they needed the extra space, and I don't think the community center can fill that. So with that, yep. That's all I have on that one. I think I have a little bit more on board communications, but I can leave it for that. Number 6, approval of minutes. I'll take a motion to approve Board of Education regular session, August 14th, 2024, and special meeting, August 29th, 2024, unless we're separating it out if anyone has any changes.
Moved.
Second. By Linda. Any changes, corrections, deletions? I went through it. I didn't see any issues. There was a spelling error that was fixed before it was posted, so that should be fine. All right, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? All right, I will hand it off to Dr. Shook for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Lindsay. So item A is the 2024-2025 start of school update. When we planned this agenda a week ago, we obviously had no idea about the tragic events that would transpire late Thursday night and into Friday that I've already kind of referenced earlier in the meeting. Again, want to repeat our thoughts and prayers continue to be with the family of Finn Gagnon, and just want to say personally, I cannot even fathom the depth of grief that his loved ones, along with so many others in our schools and community, are experiencing right now. And for me, it feels awkward and maybe even slightly disrespectful to talk about other matters about the start of the school year and aftermath of that fire that claims his young life. But this is on our agenda. It is our first meeting after the start of school, and so hopefully it's okay with everyone that we just do that. We need to go on.
I think that's point two, saying how amazing the staff has been in the past week. And Bob and I went by and checked on the schools, and you have teachers that are grieving, and they're still teaching, and they're doing a phenomenal job, and it just shows how connected our communities are on all levels. We were really proud to have those conversations, and it was nice to see. And I know Mrs. Murray and Mr. Ford are doing an amazing job with their staff as well. It's not easy, so thank you guys.
Yeah, and since Tom is here, thank you for saying that too, Lindsay. Sometimes it's easy to forget, even for me, that people like Tom, our counselors, our psychologists, the professionals that are equipped to do this, and certainly our teachers and others, we're asking them to go right in and deal with this at a time when they're still processing their own grief. And that's not an easy thing to do, but we asked them to do that, and they did. And what you kind of have to do in these situations, and sadly I've been through many of them, is you have to kind of, as best you can, try to set your own feelings aside to get through the day for those children, and then deal with that grief when you get home, or after work with your colleagues. That's how I try to handle it as well. And I think everyone in this room is grieving on some level, whether you knew Finn or not. And so, yeah, thanks. And Jen, since you're here, I want to thank you because you helped from Panama, even though the connection wasn't always strong. And even though Samantha's not here, Samantha Winkler, who's our MTA coordinator and does stand in for Jen when Jen's away. Samantha is also, can I say where she is?
She's on leave.
She's on leave, yes. Had a baby. And she helped me out at dark 30 that morning because I wanted to make sure the message that I put out was correct and thoughtful, and maybe it wasn't, maybe it wasn't, but she helped. And so if you would pass along my thanks to her, and I wanted to say that publicly as well. So, moving past that, I want to also share that August 29th was a great first day of school. All of our schools reported a smooth opening, even with the new grade level configurations at our 3 elementary schools. I want to thank our teachers and all of our employees for making our learners feel welcome at each of our schools, as well as the many parent and family volunteers who supported the schools in their efforts. Some of this is a little bit of repeat. Lindsay and I don't talk before we make our separate comments, but in addition to the typical opening activities, I also wanted to highlight the Camp Jewel trip from last week, which does represent a change in the strong middle school tradition. It's been repackaged as an opening year activity for the 8th grade instead of an end of year event. And based on the reports that we've all received, we think this was a really positive change. So kudos to you, Cheryl, and your team, and all of them for trying something different. And now that it's happened, we're like, well, duh, it should be a beginning of the year thing. Why would they do this and then go on break? But how many years did you say we've been doing it?
Oh, it's been going on since I remember vividly around 6th grade at Memorial, when I had your husband for Good Shot.
When you were in 6th grade at Memorial?
Yeah, I didn't go. My parents must not have money or something.
Yeah.
But we do have to.
And he's only 21, so that wasn't that long.
Yeah, so again, these things were happening concurrently with the tragedy. But I'm glad that our schools marched on because they needed to. On that same day, we had our COG Carnival here, which I know some of you guys actually volunteered and participated in, which was awesome. And that event continues to be a source of fun, team building, and school spirit for everyone at the high school. Again, that was kind of born out of coming out of the pandemic and feeling a need to reconnect the children to each other, to their classmates, some like the ninth graders that are brand new to the school, but and also making the others feel kind of a sense of belonging. If you haven't been or seen each grade level has a designated color for their shirt, and it really, I think, does a nice job of kind of anchoring or laying a foundation, a relational foundation for the rest of the year. And in this day and age where we stress academics as we should, I just applaud the staff at the high school for having the courage to say, you know what, we can take a day. We can take one day and make this happen. And it seems to get better every year. I did notice that there was no more dunk tank, and now there was this kind of bucket. And I guess that was probably like someone got injured last year or something, and you're tired of having.
We're not.
Okay, all right, anyway, thank you guys for that.
It was really cool to be up there. I was doing one of the stations upstairs, and just to see all these kids and mingling with different grades, and all their shirts are uniform with their grade, and even seeing the ninth graders being like, this is so weird and bizarre.
A nice picture too.
Yeah, they always take that out on the field. It was neat to see. Something that struck me that morning, just because that was the morning of the tragedy in Middlefield, was that night before, Middlefield and Durham Fire had been out, obviously at that home till the wee hours of the morning and into the day. Middlefield Fire still came with the truck. They still engaged with all the kids up here, like. And it shows a lack of commitment to our kids, and just a level of community that, like, you just don't see. You know, they're volunteers, they put their life on the line and their mental health on the line to deal with something like that, and they still send, you know, they very well could have just canceled on the carnival. So it was neat. I walked out of the building because Bob and I were heading off to Brewster to leave the carnival early, and I just shocked to see the truck there. You know, I think any of us expected them to not be there. So, you know, thank you to both Middlefield and Durham, Middletown, South, I think Westfield Fire, mutual aids and tankers from other towns.
Yeah. And I was going to mention Panama, but Lindsay said everything that I was going to say. That's okay. It's your privilege. You're the chairman. And I get to reinforce it. But yes, we will plan a presentation for October. I also have laid eyes on something very nice that will be presented to the board to commemorate that activity. We tried to get ready for tonight, but it wasn't quite ready. But that's a little teaser. So make sure you come in person next month. And last but not least, because we touched on this last time, I don't want to repeat a lot of things that I said last time about the opening of school, but since she's also here, I do want to thank Kim and her team for resolving many bus routing issues prior to and after the start of school. She may talk about that more during her report, but I just wanted to thank her for that, or she might just want to move past that. But they did a great job, and from where things were when the last board meeting was, and we had a lot of people out there with a lot of concerns about how that would go, I can say that busing is going very well right now. So thank you, Kim, for that, and to other folks. So that's it on item A. Any questions about that from anyone?
No, it's just the perfect storm of bus issues when you talk about a company that has a new computer software GPS program on top of everything, and you know, the amount of hours that Robin and Kim and dedicated to contacting families and really diligently going through the forms, and we couldn't ask for more, so thank you.
Very well.
I mean, it's important to know it has no comparison to days gone by, because it used to always be bus stops and it was far fewer. It's infinitely more complex now. It's just the way it is, and I don't see that getting any easier. Maybe it'll be easier with less schools. We'll see. If that happens.
Should be. All right, for item B, if you recall last month's meeting, the board requested that we present the official state profiles from the 22-23 school year for each of our schools and the district at tonight's meeting. I think I said this last time, but these reports are generated on the state's EdSite digital platform, and they are linked in your agenda. I did not print them out for you all. I did print them out for myself, and they're this thick. So if you haven't been through them, and you don't need paper, look digitally and save a tree. And as I stated last month, the majority of this information has already been presented to the board in some combination of regular meetings, committee meetings, monthly reports, or budget presentations. So I'm not going to go, thankfully, for most of you probably are saying, not going to go through details tonight of each school or the district. But if you haven't reviewed the reports, you hadn't had a chance to do that yet, I want to just give you kind of a flyover of what's in there. So there's information about enrollment, a snapshot from October of each year. In this case, it would be October 1, 2022. We get reports on chronic absenteeism, suspension, expulsion, staffing levels, a breakdown of our educators by race and ethnicity. We look at grade 11, 12 college career readiness courses taken during high school. Again, these are all the state's definitions of these data points. In special education, they report the number of students who spend 80% of their time or more with their non-disabled peers. We also report on outplacements and primary disabilities. There's a budget section that talks about expenditures in general, special ed expenditures, revenue sources. We also have a lot of information around accountability. Some of this is in the district performance index. Again, we've historically done this through student achievement, and also the next generation accountability index, which has lots of factors. They also have information, if it's applicable, around NAEP testing, physical fitness testing, cohort graduation rates, post-secondary readiness as defined by the state of Connecticut, college entrance and persistence, and also a narrative, which Lindsay read the last time. Another thing to mention is that because of the way this data gets reported, the years aren't all lined up. So some of the financial information, which I think you're aware of because Kim hits this pretty hard during the budget season, is like a couple years dated back, and it has to do with audit schedules and when these numbers are actually finalized, especially things like per pupils. Why we're always saying that the current year's budget is an estimate of per pupil, but not an actual until it goes through that process. The entrance and persistence data is actually for the classes of 21 and 22. That's because they have to get the data from those children after they actually attend college to find out if they're being successful kind of in that. So, the staff and I have met about this. We knew this was coming up tonight. And so if you had any specific questions about any of these reports, and we've got the answers, we'll be happy to answer them this evening. And if not, we can come back next month or send it through email if there's something specific that we don't have at our fingertips.
I think, we were, you want me to say, you want to go?
Okay.
Yeah.
I was looking at some of them on for example, on the high school. It doesn't list male. And we were wondering if that's because you can calculate binary. I don't know why you're not listing the male there, because you listed it in all the other schools.
And we were wondering if maybe that was because by identifying how many males, then it identifies a low number of possibly non-binary. I didn't know if Jen or Doug knew. Someone had asked, that looked at them and all there's just so many asterisks that go through the district report and the high school report, so it'd be good just so families know. And it also doesn't identify Black or African American, just gives the state percentage totals.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you guys saw the footnote on the front pages where I'm accustomed to seeing it for racial groups. I would agree that it seems a bit surprising to see that for an entire gender. Do you have any
I
idea?
don't know the gender, but about the according to race, there has to be a certain number.
Oh, minimum number.
So it's not identified.
Okay.
Minimum number.
I think that's due to confidentiality issues.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If you have
I
a
don't-
low number.
I just thought.
We'll
Number of males.
contact the state and ask them. I think that's a really good question.
Yeah, so at some point, we might want to link the current one for this year to board communications. It'd be good to be able to put something more than just what the asterisk says, just try to explain that, because people think it's not there. Maybe we didn't give that number to the state, so.
Just isn't, yeah.
Yeah.
And the other one I had was the tardy on the absentee list, it's a list of 79 tardy. Is anything done about that, or is that just counted? I know we've done stuff in the past, but those are not just numbers, right? They're actions to go with it.
Yes. Yeah, it's actually good data and it's different from school to school, but I know that the high school, particularly last year, I can let you guys speak to your policy or we can talk about it, we brought it up, at our district, climate, teams to really look at attendance and tardies and how we were going to address that. And there was a concerted effort, and particularly at the high school and middle school levels, to address it. And looking at that data was a push during our committee meetings and during the school team meetings, and a push for new policies and procedures that the high school put into place, which I think we saw a difference with last year, significantly so. You have the numbers. I don't have that at my
No, but
right here
be
and now,
interesting
but
to
we can
see the
certainly look at it.
The comparisons.
Yeah. Mhm. Sure can.
The other one I had questions is school performance index. I've seen a lot of the index. I don't know how you calculate that. I mean, is there
EPI?
there's some kind of formula that you use?
Yes, there's a formula.
Oh, the
Yeah.
school,
State uses-
I'm sorry, I was looking at the district one.
Mm.
Comparable one.
So it. In the formula is like this number of kids taking math, it's like score on a math test or an English test. They're combined, but
The performance index,
yeah,
that is there's the 12 accountability measures that are put into one number for the accountability system, which is the index number. So all 12 measures are put into a formula.
Yeah.
And then that formula puts out a number on a scale of 0 to 100.
Do you want Liza to email you guys the formula?
no, I don't need to, I
Okay.
just, I know that this is not. That this is data that's actually measured somehow, not
Right.
just.
Yes.
It's all from a standardized, like it'll be four-year graduation rate,
Yeah.
you know,
And
the
different things.
SBAC.
SBAC test and
Yeah.
GSBAC, growth is, that's.
That was the
number
next
one.
gen
Growth is number
accountability
2.
index.
Mhm.
That, yeah, we went through that with students. Attendance is there.
It's the state's attempt to quantify and weight appropriately all of these different factors that they believe is a true measure of a school or a district's overall performance. And, reasonable people can disagree about the weighting or even the structure of it, but it seems to be a trend. In many
That's why
states.
there's asterisks, because our population percentages don't account, can't be factored into those 12 points under the state.
On the first page of the performance reports, there is a link to the
Explanation.
suppression policy. And it is a 4-page guide that tells how the numbers are suppressed and why there is an asterisk in certain boxes. So you'll find
So
that.
that's the link that's in that little shaded box on the first page towards the bottom.
Yes,
The
it's
data
shaded
suppression
box
guide.
right there. Yep, suppression policy.
So that's all tied to FERPA.
Yep.
In that same chart where the school performance index. There's the 75 count, is that 75 white students took this test?
What page are you on?
It says on the school performance.
You're on Cognition,
On
page 3.
Page three.
Page 3 is a Cognition report.
I'm on the district
It's
one.
not-
That's where I was too. I got it.
Yeah. It goes down to white, then non-English learners. It's just odd that only 75. Is that the number of white students that are?
That took the exam.
I think it's the number, so first of all, it's in the high school, it's only 11th, 10th?
It's 11th grade.
11th.
Only
It's
11th
just
graders
the
who take
yeah.
hours, yeah,
So that's
right.
just 75
That's
white
low
students
grade.
in the 11th grade did this.
I have
I have
to open it, I don't.
That, it just says 75, like.
Yeah.
Then you go non-eligible freelance to 78. Students without disability 60, it's just an odd number to me.
Well, you're
that
right. I don't even know.
that 75 was odd number of students.
Well,
It could be some opt out, and it could be that grade is a low number. I think that's the grade 2022, 2023 would have been the last year sophomores.
what's interesting is then you look at and you see, so how many kids are in the 11th grade? And it has 86 who are heritage English speakers.
Yeah.
So that makes 11 non-white kids. And so how many kids are there or were there? Well, how many kids were there in the 11th grade in, 2 years ago?
Should be 86.
Yeah.
86.
Yeah.
So because the other numbers are so low, we
You
don't,
can't put that, 'cause
Right.
it has to be more than 5 in each category to be,
But I guess why the next gen accountability did what they did, and it does take all the factors into account, but it's hard when this is what we give the public, and it's incredibly hard to digest or understand as a parent, let alone even for us who have the knowledge that we have. So I think we just need to be mindful of it, that this is what the public gets, and maybe we need to digest some of this more and kind of separate it out and have that out for the community so they can see that.
yeah, I think that looking at the individual, like, it has the physical fitness, it has the NAEP, and it has, I think those are more revelatory than, because it is a cumbersome formula for all the things for the SPI. The only thing, well, and I was gonna say, the only thing that it could potentially be good for us for is when we're looking as a board at measures of improvement, when we look at our goals in academics. And again, the issue
Right.
is, of those 12 things, like I would say at least 3 of them shouldn't be measured because they're
Yeah.
not.
Academic.
But the state does also provide a part of this formula. I think it's 5 years, they break up, so let's say we're at a 60 and the goal is to be at a 75. They look at those 15 points and say over the next 5 years, if you do 3 points a year, you'll get up to that 75, and they create that as the growth target for the district. I don't even know if they're doing that anymore because
Yeah.
during
It
COVID,
was 2
everything
years
stopped.
ago.
Yeah.
3 years ago, yeah.
Well, yeah, we've been meeting our
Yeah.
target.
I will like to point out, though, that Erica has done a great job. Because the science, we're at 70.5, and the math and English is in the 50s. So I think that you are doing a great job.
We knew we'd single you out somewhere.
I can embarrass you more if you. So it was just interesting to see you all do that in the same place, and it's somewhat, and the other one on the next page on the benchmarks is really. It's hard to get your arms around what the benchmarks are, because it's a whole combination of stuff, and. We'd just like to see.
Especially since, because before COVID, all these numbers were a lot more simplistic. So it wasn't until COVID that next gen accountability, all those different sections came out, right? Wasn't it after?
no, they've been.
It was before? Oh, okay.
I would just like, notice that it is for student achievement, it'd be good to see growth. In all these.
So that's factor 2 on the accountability system. This is the performance profile, and the accountability system is a separate
Yeah.
document that you can also find on EdSite published.
Yeah.
So there's two different documents.
I mean, I guess people have goals and objectives of the boards coming up, and it'd be nice to see. As part of that we measure growth each year, and how they improve in English and math and science. I don't know if we can get any better in science, but we're doing good.
We've been historically good in history.
That was all. I was just wanted to make clear that.
Anyone else have any questions or comments or concerns on any of these? And just remembering that they're 22, 23, we are going to look at the current year in November, right? In our November meeting, so you probably see some changes in numbers, and hopefully we can hand off to student achievement after that. try to work that into a schedule.
Okay, then a few more items to mention. Again, they're gone, but I wanted to thank those that came from Strong tonight, children and adults, for reminding us all about the significance of September 11th. In the history of our country, I mentioned to some of you that my friend Ann Judge was on board American Airlines Flight 77 and lost her life along with so many others that day. And, even if you didn't have a personal connection to any of the 2,977 victims in those attacks, I think most of us remember the fear, the anger, the sadness, and probably a host of whole other emotions that our entire nation experienced, along with the need to honor all of those who perished that day. So it's awesome that they came and did that. And whether they felt the pressure or not, I feel like because of the fire, made it even harder for them to come. In fact, Cheryl even asked me, was it even appropriate for them to come and talk about another heavy topic? And we decided, it's September 11th, I talked to Lindsay too, and we just said, this is what we had scheduled, and this is the history, and these children didn't live it. And so they're viewing it through another lens, but I thought that was really good. Next, I want to remind the board that this time last year, you may not remember this, we signed a memorandum of understanding with our teacher bargaining unit around an attendance incentive program. And it was only the first year of it. And if there are no objections, we'd like to extend that program for the current school year to gather more data and information about the validity of such a program. For those that were part of the bargaining process, you may recall they wanted that in the actual bargaining agreement. And the compromise was to kind of have a group get together and meet and talk about it. And we did, and we did it last year. And we just don't think 1 year of data is enough. So does anyone have any objection to us doing that? Doesn't require a board vote, but I don't want to sign that if people feel like that's something you don't want us to do.
And Doug and I talked about it real quick too, and one thing I asked him was, was it successful this year? Did we feel, and I'm perfectly fine with us doing another year. There was a low amount that participated in it. So hopefully we.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a raging success. Would you, Kevin?
Not, we had 11 teachers qualify for it this year.
And it's hard to know if that's because like word of mouth, people didn't really know about it, or because what's the, is it $300?
Well, that's what I was gonna say. What was the net cost to the district this year?
So the net cost was $3,300. It was $300 of stipend or an amount of money for people who had 3 or less absences over the course of the year.
So I'd be interested in, it says that's the gross cost, right? How much did we save? because
If
of
we're able to
stops?
figure out.
Yeah,
Right, calculate that.
So, yeah, I'm
Or even
asking.
that, do we have a low amount because the incentive is not enough? So I know you guys are gonna look at that,
Yeah.
but that would be
Yeah,
good.
and we weren't looking at changing it. We just thought, let's do it for 2 years and then maybe come back the following year and see where maybe it should
And
go.
another side benefit from an educational point of view is less reliance on subs, meaning increased learning and engagement and continuity of the
More consistent
routines
instruction,
which
if you
we
will.
need.
Okay, any other questions on that? And finally, I want to take this opportunity to let everyone know that I'm not going to be seeking a new employment contract with Regional School District 13. And will be stepping down as superintendent on June 30th, 2025, when my current contract expires. I think that most of you are aware of some unexpected events that my family and I have experienced over the past year or so. Without going into detail, some that were joyful, others that were very difficult, and still others that were simply tragic. These events have prompted me to pray, reflect, and reevaluate the priorities in my life and in the life of my family. It's become very clear to me that the 16th year of serving as a superintendent should also be my last. I actually came to this decision about a month ago, but I wanted to wait to make this announcement until after our regional plan amendment passed, yay. And after we started the school year, I also wanted to make this announcement early enough so that the board could have a very long runway in planning and executing the search and selection process for the next superintendent. With all the exciting changes that we all hope lie ahead for our district, I feel like the timing of my announcement should provide ample time for the board to hire the next superintendent using whatever process and timing that makes sense to you all as a board. I'll certainly have more words to share closer to the end of my time serving here in RSD 13, including my thanks to many people. But I do want to take this opportunity to thank our board, all of you present, and those maybe who served on prior boards when I was here, for the honor and privilege to lead the district over the past few years, and to assure you that I'll remain committed to our learners, families, employees, and community till my last day on the job. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Chuck. Appreciate your words. Number 8, staff reports, Director of Finance, Kim.
We ended August, just routine report. We ended the month of August, expended general fund at 12.5%. We have encumbered 97% of the budget, and we received 23% of our revenue today. That is all I have to report to me. Oh, if you want me to talk about buses, I
Yeah.
can talk briefly. We have listened to every single concern. We tried to fix every single concern, and I would say we have very high success rates. Some we just couldn't change. But we listened to everybody and did the best, pull things out of rabbits out of hats, whatever we could do. So reports are that we're okay. There's still some buses that are 45, 50 minutes that I simply can't do anything more about. But as the year goes on, they usually pick up speed as the driver learns the routes and what kids come on Tuesday and not Wednesdays. And so this week I haven't had any parental concerns about buses. I know it's only Wednesday, but just an update on that.
Ooh, sorry, I hit the microphone. Thank you, Kim. It's always fun for Kim when she doesn't have a billion things to say.
I know.
As we keep checking off capital projects and things, it seems like she has less and less support. Don't we? We'll have more. Committee reports, policy committee.
Yeah, the policy committee met on August 28th. We went over the 5,000 series, which you'll see coming up under 11G. But one of the ones that we chose not to deal with is the graduation requirements for the high school, and we referred that to the student achievement committee. Our current one doesn't include a few things like capstone and a couple of hours. So I think, and the Shipman one was a little bit odd. It had some state requirements in that are different than ours. So I think it needs a careful discussion between the staff, faculty, and the board about, what do we really want to have as our graduation requirements, and if there are differences we have now versus, if we're making changes and we've already implemented them, we probably ought to get them into policy quicker. So hopefully the student achievement, which is September 20-something. 25th, we'll be happy to sit in and talk, and I hope Deb and staff can attend and also insights and stuff. So. And did the volleyball team win? Is that what I said?
Yeah.
So that was it. And I'll be back.
All right, 10 board of communications and professional development. And I don't have much here other than if you're able to come for the CAVE CAPS convention in November, we have a bunch of emails on it that keep sending us reminders. A few of us are signed up for it. It would be really great if we can go. The keynote speaker is Tim Shriver from Special Olympics. It's going to be, I think, an incredible experience this year. A lot more than other years. So I think that will be great. CAVE area directors are meeting next week. We're trying to figure out how the board of directors from CAVE, we can all meet and still have regular board meetings, to try to get that many people in one room. They actually meet tonight at 6 o'clock. So it's always on our regular board meeting nights, but I've been keeping up with the other 2 area directors and the executive director for CAVE and giving some feedback for them in the upcoming legislation. There's a lot on funding with ECS grants and special ed. So we're going to look at that closely. If there's things that are tied to the district, we want to be able to go up and testify and try to get regionals a lot more airtime, so to speak, at the state. It's been been really nice, from the plan amendment. We've had a lot of communications from CABE congratulating us, as a board. And it's put a highlight, I think, on a lot of the struggles that regional districts go through, from funding to, ability. And so I think there's we're gonna work on doing a CABE webinar for regional districts. Hopefully a couple of us can speak at that. And it's just historically been, a lot of the smaller regional districts in the state haven't really gotten a lot of their concerns out there. So we really want to try to do that in this coming session. Besides that, that's all I have. Does anyone have any communications or?
Can you talk about the board communications page, the
Oh,
one page that?
Yeah. So we had all voted to start looking at, and a lot of it's tied into our goals and objectives, which we'll get to. That we wanted to have a separate section on the RSD 13 site for board communications. I sat down with Ken and where's Ken? Ken's over there. And he trained me on how to deal with that, and Catapult's an interesting program and it's very user friendly. And I think Bob and Tina and I are going to go through and try to revamp that site and just get it up so that we have as much communications as we can out there. And as board members, we can then link to that page. So we're not having to use our own personal emails or social medias, that we can do that, as well as putting together our Board of Ed Facebook page, which is almost completely done. I just have to have Ken take a look at compliance and how we're going to work with that. Right now, if you go to it, it's under Board of Education and then Board Communications. And the only thing that's on there right now is our field house dedication. So we're going to take a look at that. Bob has, we're going to get Bob a login and take a look at that and add to it as we need to. If there's a statement the board needs to make, we can post that there and link to it. So I think it's going to be a good avenue for the board to have information out there.
If anybody wants to write an article, that'd be great.
Yeah, we're going to try to link to a lot of the stuff that's that we get monthly from CABE too. It's good to see what other boards around the state like us are doing and what we're involved in. And
Every time I walk into Durham Market, some old person like me says, I don't know what's going on the board. Can we have something? I said, just wait. We'll have a page that you can access, because they don't want to go into Parent Square. They don't want to do that stuff. They want to have something they can see easily. And so hopefully we can get something out there that the residents can read without having to think about students, because they really are not informed of what the board is doing, and they would like to be.
yeah, we're looking, so we pulled the old template for the Board of Ed newsletters. We're going to revamp that and make it so it's in different sections for all of our committees, having student achievement, having update, policy. We've had a lot of just walking door to door on the plan, and a lot of people want to know what policies are changing, what's in the news. Is that we affected by things like that? It gives us an avenue to be able to say, we're listening to the community and when we form policy. So it'll be exciting to be able to spotlight different teachers and different parts of the district, from athletics to robotics. And they want to hear it. It's hard hearing door to door how many people don't understand, are so many years behind on where we are. And a lot of them say, oh, it's because I just don't pay attention, so it's okay. But I'm like, no, it's not. Like, if they have something that comes to the door and it's 3 pages and they can read it and keep up to date, I think it'll really help. Even hearing people say, oh, well, why don't you move kids from instead of strong, move them to corn? And so how long we haven't had corn. It's a community center now. So and they're shocked to hear that. So I think we forget how much of our communities, as small as they are, sometimes so much goes on in the towns as small as they are. So
That is surprising, considering that, we do take up about 80% of the budget from both Middlefield and Durham. And
Yeah.
I think if that where people might get more involved, and I've noticed a bit more activity in the local town meetings, which is very nice to see.
yeah.
So just hopefully that whole momentum continues and we can all be better for that, all around. So
Yeah, and I think the main thing we've realized too is that our communication is only as good as the towns are. We're working really hard with both Board of Selectmen for both towns, good relationships there. Working with our political parties, it's a fact. We want to have good relationships with them. Bob and I are in contact and with them and making sure that they understand what our district is doing and whether it aligns with, as a whole, what both, political parties are looking at. But I think when it comes down to it, it's the towns operate so differently. They operate on a government level very differently. And I think when that comes together at a district level, we kind of have to take those and we have to tailor our information to those communities. Millfield's a lot harder to get to. They're there if you want to go door to door. And I do have to say it was a great experience. I didn't have more than like one negative experience. I'll say that.
Although this data is not scientific, anytime we send out a board communication via snail mail, I do have to go to the PO box. I have a PO box. I go there regularly. I do take a peek in the refuse container. I don't see very many of our communications in there, so that is good. I do occasionally lift it up, but that's good, because otherwise it's just a waste of money.
But Middlefield's piloting a really neat newsletter as well, and it's been very well received in Middlefield, and I know Durham's looking at that too. It's all combined with, I think we've said it a few times, it seems like the Town Times is looking to phase out the Town Times as a free publication. It's combined with, I think, Connecticut Insider. And so articles for that and Middletown Press that are owned by Hearst Media are being spotlighted in the Town Times. It's very hard. We don't find anything for Durham and Middlefield very often, and they're incredibly hard to get to. And they don't answer emails and they don't answer phone calls. So the towns are talking about it a lot. I think both Board of Selectmen are talking about their meetings and how we can improve getting information out there in articles. Maybe even collaborate with the towns and do a quarterly district town newspaper and newsletter somehow, but it's a lot of logistics, but we know that the information's not out there like it used to. It's hard to see the Town Times from like 4 or 5 years ago where they had the entire leaflet for the district in there from Coggins-Shog. It was, I think the Advocate was in there at the time. So we'll keep working at it and improving our communication relationships with the towns. We now have a good platform to talk to both registrar's office. We have all their emails, and it's been good being able to get in touch with the town clerks and registrars and knowing who everyone is. And Meg does an amazing job communicating with them on all of our notifications. So all I have right now. Anyone else? Anything fun last month? Okay. All right, move on to new business. I don't know how I don't think we talked about how you want. Is Kevin going to take these for those bargaining units?
If he's so willing.
Okay, I will be so inclined to provide a little information. So
Probably both them one at a time.
Yeah.
sure. I just wanted to preface by saying it was a very busy summer from the bargaining unit negotiations perspective. We were able to successfully provide 3 new contracts. The first contract was with the Support Staff Association. And just the highlights, I believe the board did receive the summary of key provisions here of the 2024 settlement. The duration of the contract with the support staff is 3 years. With the insurance, basically you can see the cost share for this year will be at 15%. The following year will be 15.5%. And the 25-26 year will be 16%. There are some specific information relating to various aspects of the contract that were settled through collective bargaining. You can take a look at the grievance procedure, working from home, extra duty assignments. We did have a slight increase for coverage for positions requiring a teaching certificate. Holidays for 12-month employees, some slight changes in language with bereavement leave, parental leave, general leave. We did increase a course reimbursement from $1,000 to $1,250 for professional development on the part of the support staff bargaining unit members. And lastly, wages. The GWI increases are 3% each year. You can see the total cost with step movement in bold down below. And I think overall, that is a summary of the support staff contract negotiations. With the custodial negotiations, again, just a general summary, it's a 3-year agreement that runs through the 26-27 school year. Again, health insurance premiums, we were able to be pretty consistent, and we thought it was a good settlement for 24-25. Again, 14.5%, 25-26, 15%, and 26-27, 15.5%. So there is a 0.5% increase in cost share for the bargaining unit members each year. In terms of holidays, we did add Juneteenth to the holidays. It's now a state holiday. We made some slight changes with sick leave, uniform allowance. Again, to summarize, the custodians with the salary, it's a 3% increase each year, which I think was a reasonable settlement. And that was again ratified by the custodian bargaining unit today. And lastly, with the food service negotiations, again, a very consistent settlement, 3-year agreement. Health insurance, again, consistent with custodians and support staff, 14.5, 15, 15.5. A slight increase in clothing allowance. We did provide an extra hour for a specific cook 2 category when the basic food service areas are not fully staffed. And lastly, for salary, again, a consistent 3.0% increase each year for the life of the contract for both the manager and the cook 2, with a 6% increase for the cook 1 classification. And that adjustment was made based on the level of responsibilities for the various cook 1s in each of the district buildings.
And everybody is now on the state health plan, right?
That's correct.
I'll make a motion to approve the contracts. Each one.
We have to wait.
We probably should do them individually.
Make a motion to accept the custodian bargaining agreement dated July 24th to June 27th.
Second. I'll second. Second, Lucy. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes. B.
Make a motion to accept the food services bargaining agreement from July 2024 to June 2027.
I'll second. I'll second. Second by Lucy. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the support staff bargaining agreement from July 24th to June 2027.
I'll second. Second by Lucy. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
I'd also like to thank Kevin and Kim and Doug and Lacey and whoever else spent all summer working.
I was just going to say, I want to thank Bob and Lindsay for their participation in the support staff negotiations. And also Doug and Kim for all 3 of the negotiations.
The labor of love.
Yes, we spent a lot of positive moments involved in negotiations, so thank you.
Most people don't realize with all the legal language, how much time goes into it, and there's just so much time, and thoughtful time. You know, I think that one thing I've learned about this district is that we are listening, and we're listening to everybody and coming to agreements that are fair and good for our staff, so.
Probably ought to thank Peter Maurer too, because he's been doing this for 6-7 years now, I think.
Yeah, Pete from Shipman is amazing. He's kind, thoughtful. He's a good person to talk to. He's open and honest and great to work with.
Yeah, I think it's so important to value everybody in this district, and certainly faculty is wonderful, administration, but you know, sometimes kids remember and have the most fondest memories and just good support from all these people. And, sometimes they're more visible than seen every day.
They are, Jamie, and sometimes kids make connections with these individuals too that, really carry them through tough times. So
Absolutely.
they are really, really important members of our school community.
Yeah, I think with anything too, it's been so good to have representation on a lot of these bargaining agreements, because we've seen even from, outside of a bargaining agreement, things that can help us shape policy and things that we didn't know about our staff. And it's been eye-opening and it's been great to see. Thank you. Appreciate it. B, vote to establish June 13th, 2025 as a high school graduation date.
Yeah, you may recall from years past, or maybe we just started this last year, that the state a number of years ago enacted legislation that enables boards to establish a graduation date, not until the school year has started. And what your action would mean if you took this action tonight, which we are recommending that you do, is that the graduation date would be fixed instead of floating it in a year that there might be some inclement weather that would push back the school year beyond that date. And so what this was essentially mean is that the seniors don't have to go to class after graduation, but everybody else would have to if we have a lot of weather, which we haven't had the last few years. Maybe we will this year. We'll get zinged. I have no idea. But I think for the high school and also for the families of the graduates, and maybe even for some of us, it would be nice to be able to lock that date in. People make out-of-town hotel reservations, airlines. We do, it is a Friday this year, right? Yeah, we moved it there, and that had been a request from the high school to try to anchor it to a weekend, because that is a lot more convenient for people that have out-of-town folks coming, if they want folks coming. But I think for those families to celebrate that. So yes, this is our recommendation, and again, it will fix the date and allow us to publish that as a fixed date, as opposed to my understanding before we had this option. You can tell people this is the date as of now, and then it could move from day to day, even throughout the winter.
With that, I'll take a motion to establish June 13th, 2025 as the high school graduation date.
So moved.
By
I
Linda.
want to be popular.
Second by Tina. Any discussion?
And my two daughters who run Project Graduation will be very happy to know the date.
Yeah, I think many people will.
Yeah.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. Aye. Okay. E, Special Education Oversight Committee scope, goals, and objectives. I will hand this off to our chair for the Special Education Oversight Committee, with Tina. And just so everyone knows, if anyone's watching, the scope, goals, and objectives are linked in the agenda.
Okay, thank you. So just in case folks are interested, if you go to the Regional School District 13 website under Board of Education, minutes, etc., agendas, this is linked in there too. This was shared earlier, I think within the last week, with Doug and with Jen. And I'm not going to read it through word for word. I want to just summarize it and then take questions if anybody here has questions with the scope and the goals and the objectives, and then the timeline that's attached. So per our conversation that we had here last in August, on the 14th of August, we voted to establish an ad hoc, meaning not permanent forever committee, but temporary committee, to provide support and address the staffing challenges that came up over the last, few months, specifically recognizing that our special education staff is important, and we're seeking to understand the reason why we have a significant number of resignations since April, May, June of 2024. Some of which, if you look at the number of years that those folks had committed to district, that had been invested in district, we're talking about decades of service, which kind of, leads us to pause and say, well, what led to this? So the goal of the committee is to just take a look with the goal of enhancing staff retention, which would ensure long-term success of special education programming and our district's commitment to all of the students. The goal is to be done with this work by the December 11th meeting of this year. So not ongoing for a very long time. The goals of what we're looking to do, in the interest of being really transparent about this, but also respectful of confidentiality, FERPA for students and all of that. So goals, when you talk about goals and objectives, we always say goals and objectives. Goals are general statements. So like, what's the thing that we want to achieve? We really want to understand the root causes behind the recent resignations. We definitely want to enhance employee retention. What strategies can we pull together to retain staff? Our special ed staff, they're among some of the most dedicated professionals that I've ever had the pleasure to work with. And how do we retain them? How do we promote that stability? Another goal is to engage the stakeholders, everyone who's involved in this program from A to Z, and then evaluate as a board the resources that are necessary to maybe address the needs. Are we looking at compensation questions that came up last month when we met? Professional development, like how on the board level can we support in terms of resources and resource allocation to the department. Objectives then are the how. So how are we going to go about achieving those goals? So information collection, speaking with current former special ed staff, getting ideas into their experiences, challenges, specifically reasons for resignation. We've already talked about exit interviews and surveys. I did send Kevin an email asking for exit interviews and surveys since 2017. And why 2017? Two reasons. One, you need more than just very recent data to look and be objective about the kind of the scope of things. I think, Dr. Darcy, you would be able to help me with the, fidelity of something with the amount of data that you would want to look at. We want to go beyond just a couple of exit surveys to make sure that we really are getting a good picture. And the second one was that at the last meeting, it was just mentioned that since 2017, we've been collecting and running exit interviews and surveys. The other objectives are to kind of compare, ask other districts, educational institutions, like Jen mentioned at the last meeting, that this is not necessarily a unique situation to our district, right? So what are the challenges? Is it a state thing? Is it a certification thing? Is it is it a compensation issue? And what are other districts doing to improve their staff retention within their special educational programs? And then the idea is to have a final report where we put together some either recommendations or suggestions or support, and that could be not recommendations and suggestions to the department, but recommendations and suggestions to the board for how we can support in our role, either with resources or other types of support. So the idea is starting presently collecting some information, sharing the goals and the scope with administration, with the public, and then by December, having analyzed, gone through data collection, developing and drafting a final report, and sharing that with everybody here on the board at the December 11th meeting. So our next step would be then asking for those exit interviews, looking at those, chatting with staff. And I do want to mention that we've been approached, I say we, some of the board members, it's been mentioned that staff is very concerned about speaking with us. They are concerned about confidentiality of their own selves, their own roles within, special ed. They're concerned, about retaliation if it's discussed or if it's, inferred that they are sharing information that might not be positive. And I do want to say it out loud in public, recorded in minutes, that staff can speak to the board. They have every right to speak to us. They are protected by their unions and by the state and by lots of different avenues. And I want to make sure that they know that it's okay to speak to the board if we ask to meet with them. Obviously, it would be voluntary, clearly. Obviously, they have the right to say no, but they also have the right to speak without fear of retribution or retaliation, or some sort of personal or professional consequence. I just wanted to address that because it has come to us as a concern that some folks had. But I'm happy to take questions.
Have we talked to the union about this and our intention to talk
Yes.
with, and they're on board and supportive of it?
I'm waiting to hear back from one particular, but
I'm just thinking, because y'all told me a story about a survey years ago that did not go well, and specifically the union pushed back on that. So I just wanted to make sure that we have their involvement
We
and
did
input.
receive a response back that that information was available in central office from one of the union reps. So we do have communication back and forth, and we'll just make sure
Yeah,
that
we
we
have-
continue that and work with Adam. Did you want to look at dates for meetings?
Well, I have a couple of other
Yeah.
questions slash comments that, you know, in order to do this and get the best data analysis out of it, you really need to look at the exit interviews, not just for special ed, but for all, right? Because otherwise, if we're looking at staff retention, period, then, but if we're looking specifically at what's happening in special education, then you need a control group, right? You need that group to say, oh, you know what, it's the same thing. We just voted basically saying that 1 year's worth of data is a blip. And so looking at trends and looking at if there's a trend that I know of a district that has a revolving door in one particular department, and it is reflective of that department. And I don't know if this is that, right? And so in order to, if we are trying to really unearth something within a department, you have to have the control group, right? We have to know, is it the same thing that we're seeing statewide, nationwide, or whatever? Because anything that we do for people in one department for retention would apply to people in every department for retention. So that was just something I was thinking about, because we want to know if those root causes are specific to the special education department, or is it the district?
Or do we need to look at the actual exit surveys, or do we just need to know resignations in certain departments? That's another thing too.
And then it goes to, how are you going to define department? Because
Well, I meant overall. just thinking overall.
But what I mean is, like, if we want to compare special ed to general ed, because you can't really compare special ed to the history department, right? Because it's a very small, only secondary, blah, 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 blah.
It might not have a significant control group, honestly, because of the workload, the scope, the state requirements.
Yes, and, I often talk about how we find our, as educators, we find our home right? Like as a secondary person, I do not want to be trapped in a room with little people, like all day. Nope, not me. I like looking at them through glass. They're adorable. But I don't want to be trapped in a room with them. Conversely, sometimes, a elementary teacher will be like, I don't want to have 130 kids. I would rather see them for 45 minutes and come in and out of my life like that. So people who choose special education, there's some, like, it is apples to oranges. So the requirements for special education teachers, some of it, they go in knowing it. You know what I mean? So when we look at workload, we look at the paperwork requirements and all of that. Some of that is just part of the job, and people may be like, I'm not down with that anymore. Like, it's exhausting. And so I want to make sure that when we're going into this, we are as prepared to find, there's nothing here. There's no here versus going in thinking we're gonna find something and looking for that. And quite frankly, I kind of feel like that's what it is. And I want it to be as open to walk into this and say, oh, this was a 1-year blip. And I want people to have that mindset that it could be either way.
What makes me a little bit uneasy as well, Doctor, thank you. It's already a difficult job. It is an awful lot of work when we ask for a lot of data for somebody to prepare a presentation for us. It is a huge thing. And if that actually takes away from our main mission of what we're supposed to be doing, that's not good. So it cannot be a burden to that department. Cannot. It's too important of a job that, oh no, I gotta just now dedicate 5 days to getting ready for this board meeting. It's a lot. I just looked in years past when I started serving, like, my heavens, Corey probably worked her blank off for 10 days to get that report done that we were asking. And it's like, there's enough is enough sometimes, It's not saying underestimating the importance, not to make light of the people we lost. That's, it's gonna happen. I just looked at my phone lists from the last 5 years in Hartford. And our special ed department has different names in every single slot, every single year. So it's not saying it's acceptable for here, but you know what? I'm kind of tempered a little bit to this situation. It's a difficult job. There's no question about it. Every single number is different from department head onward down, year to year to year. Wow, we have it pretty good.
And that's true, but we also have an opportunity with this to be able to address maybe some shortcomings somewhere, budgetary or resource or whatever, so it kind of opens the door for an opportunity.
I'm happy to hear Tina say right off the bat, support is the
Right.
#1 goal.
Right.
That's awesome.
It's not, when you look at the state, and the state's taking such a big chunk of this coming session for the legislation on special education, there's special education ad hoc committees. There's a meeting, I think through ACES is hosting it. A lot of the rests are hosting it. What was that called? The committee's called?
Not my department.
I forget what it's called. But so
I forwarded
when we
that
look at
over to
those,
someone else.
The state's looking at a lot of things too. So if we're as a district getting ahead of where we can help our district, I think it's definitely, worth doing for our staff and for our goals and right, the task force is the task force to study special education services and funding. And they released their findings, I believe, for the state. It's on the 24th, the one phrase is, a lot of them are during the day. I think there's 2 that are at night. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of those as well. Do we want to look at dates? What I had said to Tina would be, it'd be great if we could piggyback it onto another day we already have meetings going. Kind of like we do with policy and. If we don't have any specific ideas for days or times.
Yeah, no, let's just do that. I think that's a really good idea. Many of us will be here anyway.
You know, I say tentatively, get a couple. And committee wise. The 18th, we have policy and building those, that's the opposite Wednesdays when we have a lot that day, so if we could.
Student achievements following week.
So yeah, if
Student
we could
achievement.
piggyback it on student achievement and do a 5 o'clock special ed oversight. On the 25th. What time, so we usually have student achievement at 4:30.
We've been starting at 4:30. In years past, we started at 4. Does that work for you guys if we do instead of 4:30?
Durham Fair is.
Yeah.
For student achievement. Okay.
And
Fair is the next day.
and the other question is, we haven't had a 1-hour student achievement meeting in recent memory. And
That's why I saw the phase.
so we can, and that's what happens with building and policy. We know we're under the time crunch, and maybe that motivates us to move quicker through it, but
Yeah, and I
What's-
think going forward, we won't have one out meetings either.
What about the third Wednesday? I think that's the, did we cancel, we didn't cancel anything today, so it would have been, we could do it before this.
yeah, if there was not a board work session or anything else, it could be a 5 o'clock start to a board meeting for the committee to convene, and then the regular board meeting follows at 6, like we've done with work sessions before, and even committee meetings from time to time.
That would be good. If we get it, I think they're right. I don't think we've ever been less than an hour on.
If we could
student
still
achievement.
start at 4, that would be great. But we understand it's hard.
We're discussing what?
Student.
Student achievement paired up with building, did I just hear that?
No, paired with the special ed oversight committee to
Oh, okay.
schedule some meetings.
And this is in person?
Yeah.
Okay.
So why don't we take that idea and then we'll throw some ideas back and forth, and try to set something up.
The
Do we-
agenda for student achievement, maybe we could get it down to 2 hours.
That would be great.
We'll do that.
It might be more focused. Student achievement might be far more focused this year, so that might trim the time.
Yep. Okay, so we'll leave the dates out and times and we'll go back and forth.
on the dates, right?
No,
Yeah.
no, just,
But we just
so I
have
wanted
to
to throw
publish
some.
them ahead of time since. Okay.
Yep.
We have to vote on this, this goal,
The scope, no, I already did
the scope, no, we voted on the committee. Okay.
Anything else, you know?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. All right, discussion, possible vote to amend 24-25 goals, UE goals and objectives. This is also linked to your agendas. And we've revamped this a few times and Bob and I have met. And we've gone to different chairs for committees and tried to really target the goals and objectives down to a almost final draft. So we wanted to bring it back here one more time today. I know we have a couple different comments, changes possibly, but I'll go through and I'll read it. So the first paragraph, goals and objectives detailed in this document underscore the Board of Education's commitment to delivering high quality and sustainable educational experiences for all students within Regional School District 13. At the core of these objectives is our dedication to executing the newly established regionalization plan, which highlights our pledge of support to families, students, staff, and community stakeholders during this exciting time for our district. We also understand that this transitional time comes with its challenges, and this plan addresses key areas including design, safety, logistical concerns, both temporary and long-term, and fiscal responsibility. To maintain transparency and accountability, elements of the comprehensive school development and safety plan will be systematically reviewed and discussed at every Board of Education meeting. After the vote to approve these goals and objectives, the RSD 13 Board of Education will outline specific next steps, including timelines, plans, and assignments. You'll all recognize the 4 sections under student achievement, well-being, engagement, and fiscal oversight. That has not changed since our original draft. The goal has not changed. That is the same as before. I will read some of the different objectives that we had added since then. Evaluate timelines and descriptions for implementation of upcoming pathway programs at Cogachug. So that's just our career pathways programs, be able to evaluate those descriptions and their implementation timelines. commission a study for establishing talented and gifted programming per part in education, children requiring special education, sections 10-76A, 1-10, 76-1. So those are linked in there as well. Do we want to go through and have you read the objectives, and then we'll go back if there's questions? Does that sound better? To support the elective offerings at both Strong School and Coggins. We've seen a lot of exciting changes with electives. We want to make sure that we're a part of that conversation. Establish the Student Achievement Committee to serve as the curriculum committee. Props to us, that goal's already in there. We haven't even voted on it. So we've done that. Ongoing growth in all areas assessed for K through 12. Something Bob had said earlier today, wanting to make sure that we are looking at growth. Recommend, develop, review, and approve the K-12 math, ELA, science, and social studies curriculums with the Student Achievement Committee for the statute we've discussed before. Define processes and policies for evaluating and adopting programming and curriculum for K through 12. This goes along with the work that the Student Achievement Committee will do as the curriculum committee. Evaluate and establish a robust STEAM curriculum and programming to include outdoor education K through 12. We've had a lot of support from this board to be able to look at our what we're missing in outdoor education, which has been a huge part of our district for many, many years. And some thoughts that, we might be really missing some of those elements, especially at our elementary levels. Well-being.
Can we do it section by section?
Yeah, we can just, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to start.
Well, I'll just throw two things out there. One is, for number 3, we know how I feel about, gifted and talented. I think in my opinion,
Oh, I missed that.
it's not, a good use of our time or resources. I would also say this implies as though we have to do some kind of gifted and talented program by putting the state statute there, which is not the case. We just have to identify students who are, that we grant upon them a label of gifted and talented, but we don't have to provide any programming. So I think that the implication, the way this is written, is that we have to, which we do not. It's nothing I'm going to vote against. I'm just saying it's misleading, and in my opinion, the resources could be used for other more important pieces. And I think we talked about in number 7, where it says recommend, develop, review, and approve. I feel pretty strongly we shouldn't have develop in there. Like, that's not our position. So I would take that out.
Take develop out. Okay. And then on gifted talent, so we had talked about this, we left it because the minutes were unclear. I think that the spirit of that was that, and you and I have talked about before, that we do a lot of really great work around identifying for special ed. How do we do that without having that talented and gifted program? What do other districts do that can identify students who aren't necessarily getting the programming that could make them the most successful on the other end?
Right.
So.
And my response to that is a good tier 1. It should be happening in the classroom. All students are gifted, all students are talented. And what happens with these kinds of programs is it is students whose parents are involved, who have cultural capital, who have political capital, who get the services. And it is often used as a way to take the little jewels of children out away from obnoxious children and do something special with them. And so if we, and again, some of that, no, it's research based. I was gonna say some of that's opinion. The opinion piece is how any given district can deal with it. I would say that the resources are better spent looking at how we can improve what's happening for every child in the classroom every day, rather than coming up with a program that we pull a select number of kids who have been deemed by someone as gifted and talented.
So would we feel more comfortable putting in commission a study on our tier 1 programming and or tier 1 evaluations? And
so even when we think about, what is it? It's not enrichment, it's not differentiating up basically, as well as differentiating and modifying. Was it? Yeah, but yes, sure. which can and should be happening in the classroom for any student with any particular skill. And that's what student-centered learning is, right? So, yeah, that's just kind of we will leave kids out by having a special program, as opposed to having a push-in program that all students are eligible for and exposed to and enrolled in.
In the not so distant past, we had a teacher that was hired. It was for enrichment.
We still have.
And
It's
is
still
she
there.
still there? Okay, and that, I don't believe we just had small groups of students. I think all the students were included, and that enrichment was available for all the students. I'm not sure how many grade levels it had progressed, but I know that was at the middle school, if I remember.
Yeah, that's strong.
That's strong.
And that's what
But
some
the
districts
goal
do,
was
is they'll
to
have
cross
a where every kid goes through a project-based learning kind of enrichment
Right.
kind of class. And that,
Yep.
and again, so to me, it's like, then that's not really gifted and talented. It's how we draw out gifted and talented from each and every one of our kids.
Well, as a result of the last time we were pursuing this program, we do know that they're identified. And,
Right.
and if they have a special need because of their gift or their talent, are we in any way meeting that as if they had a special need that was debilitating in them? No, so we're not, if they're identified because the state says they have a special need, it just happens to be, are we doing anything about that?
Well, I would say it's not a special need, it's a special talent, which
Well-
means it's not impeding their success, their academic or social success. And if it is, then that goes to a 504 or a special education. But
Well, what if we just do that?
do what?
Give them a 504. And make them identify as, this is
So-
something, I'm just talking right now.
Because what will happen is, it's parents who are involved, who are educated, who have cultural and political capital, who will get their kids the 504. And so you have the majority of students who don't have that kind of access. And so it just becomes another way that we give kids who are already academically and socially successful something extra. That
What's the difference between having AP classes then? Or,
AP classes are open to everybody.
yeah, but only if they could qualify, right?
Shouldn't be. AP classes should be open to anybody.
Yeah.
Anybody who wants to take an AP class should be allowed to take an AP class.
But we,
So the issue is
we
around
don't do that.
identification. So we
A lot of districts
recommend
do.
for AP and we probably don't. I'm sure if a child wants to take an AP class, it can be likely recommended yes or no, correct? Yeah.
You talking about it?
We're all looking at each other.
Yeah. I mean, and again, it depends on the district. There's a lot of districts where there is no gatekeeping to advanced classes. Recognizing that kids mature cognitively and developmentally at different times. I had a D average in high school. And yeah, I was invited to take an AP class. Because what had come before, I didn't take it, don't get me wrong, it's a lot of work. Else to the no. So
It's only at the beginning of the school year.
I'm glad I came.
I can't wait for Christmas.
made it worth it.
Oh,
John showed up just for that.
I figured these students.
So again, it's not that, so, one of the examples Bob used in the last session was last discussion was talking about like a kid who has that burning desire to write a book in them, right? Or to be a writer in them. And my response to that is that their class, if it's an elementary, their classroom teacher should be bringing that, nurturing that.
Well, I agree, but it doesn't happen.
And so yes.
Well, that's my
And
point.
that's the issue is tier one. And so I 100% agree. They should be getting that nurturing, but it should happen in a tier one rather than a pull out.
We nurture kids who play sports.
Yep. And we already talked about that. I don't think we should be spending that much money on sports.
Well,
Not running again.
Whoa.
Say whatever you want.
We're on the same team.
No.
We need it.
It's hard to follow that. And we nurture kids who are excel in band. And we see them on stage and we promote what they're doing and we give them opportunity to show their experience. We don't give anybody opportunity who's, we have graduate year ago who's in engineering. We don't give her any special recognition because she, is a valedictorian. We give her at the end of the year, yeah, you're a valedictorian, get a ribbon.
They could, so yes, but we also have robotics. We have other ways, right? We have other programs.
Robotics is now a sport under CIHC.
So there's esports.
So I mean, I just think that we have students who need their talent enhanced if we can. And not saying that we have to have here's all the talented and gifted kids, but we need to have a recognition that this person is recognized because of whatever. And that our faculty needs to address that in whatever method they can. We don't have to have a list of talented and gifted kids running around with a sign on them or that they're leaders of the school system, but I
agree with that.
I don't think that we spend enough time looking at how we excel. We lose kids to choke because they may excel, and yet we can't show them what they can accomplish here if they excel in a certain area. We don't show them why we have a program in biological sciences that they could go and work with a school or a nurse. The pathways may help, but we don't have those things. And I'm just saying, if we got kids that are wicked smart, and they ought to be identified. We don't have to have a list. They don't need a sign on them. But teachers ought to know that there's something they should be looking at as a special need for them as well. And I don't care what we call it, but because we have to identify them, we need to figure out how to deal with it. And individual learning is probably the best way to deal with it. And and if they want to go do a science project, with the medical institute down the road, they're allowed to do that. They say that they can go and we can get them out of school so they can go do that thing. Nobody else has to know, that these kids are running around doing science experiences and stuff like that. But they ought to have the opportunity, and we ought to figure out how to make their opportunities valid.
And I agree with all of that, and I think it can and should all be done without being under the umbrella of gifted and talented.
I think that's all in the saying is, identifying and putting a marker on a kid in the spirit of talented gifted is not what we should be looking towards. We should be looking towards giving support in academic programming to kids who need them on all ends, and not.
Right.
Right?
Support and.
Give me a sentence, because we did this last meeting and that
Right.
never
Don't
wrote
hold them
down.
back.
Support and opportunities.
Support,
For each student to be successful academically and socially.
support opportunities for
each student to meet their academic and social potential.
to meet or exceed.
Yeah,
their
sure.
academic and social.
Can you exceed potential?
I mean, I think you could.
I'm also.
Okay, so we'll make that change. Is everyone okay with that change?
Yeah.
Anything else under student achievement, Dr. Darcy?
Oh, no, thank you.
I'm sure you have more time.
We just had
We have
number
other
7 taking
sections.
development.
Well-being, goals stayed the same. Objectives, determine priority, safety, and security enhancements needed. And I'll add K-12 to that. Number 2, establish an action-based ad hoc committee of stakeholders to assess climate and grade level groupings of K through 5 and 6 through 12. We've already talked about doing that, and we'll look to doing a formation of that next month. Review awards and other forms of recognition the district uses, grades K 6 through 12. This portion came up when we were looking at different ways that we celebrate achievements. And we want to make sure that we have a robust way for the district to recognize students in 6 through 12. Even looking at graduations, step-up ceremonies. We can take a look at that over the course of the year. Review current anonymous reporting mechanism for safety and well-being concerns. This goes back to our original Google reporting form. Want to take a look at that and see if a lot of our partners, Sandy Hook Promise has offered us a lot of information, and they've revamped a lot this year, and a lot of the concerns we had last year about having somebody access that 24 hours, they've really revamped that, and they've I think it's something we should look at, especially 'cause it's been really successful in other districts around us. And we might get more, you know, I think Jen and I have talked about it before. We don't have a lot of people, you know, reporting things. And I think it's no different than we talk about, you know, are people coming to meetings? Are they working, you know, are they watching? Are we doing all these things? And we want to make sure that if there are issues, that those are getting reported, but without putting a burden on the staff. Review depth and breadth of RSD 13's extracurricular offerings to ensure offerings appeal to a broad cross-section of the student body. So looking at, are we meeting the extracurricular needs of kids K through 12? And that's a heavy thing to go through. And you'll probably notice a lot of these goals and objectives, we used to have short-term and long-term, and we took those away just because it's gonna, over the course of time, a lot of these will become short-term or some of them might turn into long-term goals. So lumping them into sections for long-term and short-term more a good idea. Research training opportunities for issues of equity and diversity in order to ensure that every student has the opportunity to thrive. And that's a lot of professional development, and we do have chunks of different professional development. We just want to be able to go through and be a part of that from a policy standpoint. The engagement goal is the same. Oh, sorry, we're on well-being. Do we have any questions or additions on well-being?
Just as I mentioned before, that it feels like kind of a low bar that researching training opportunities is the goal for a full year. And I think that I personally would like to see, and it can't happen this year, so well, could, but probably not. A plan to have 100% of the staff receive some kind of diversity, equity, inclusion training.
Why don't we say that?
Yep, excellent, thank you.
That's a great idea. Yep, so we'll add that to objective number 6. You know, and I think it's something that the teachers are really asking for, especially on a lot of our of the EL program. There's a lot of really heavy topics on a lot of these units. I forget if they're called units or modules. I was looking for that word. Thank you. And there's been some, you know, expressing that it's hard to have these conversations, and there's certain things that they just want to be able to have that professional development on, and we'll work with administration to make sure that we can do that. So we'll add that. You have anything else?
No, I think we did have 100% of the staff trained.
We recently did have a consultant come in to train all of our staff members, and then there's going to be a professional learning cohort.
You guys can jump in at any time.
Yeah, because if that, and I would also say, to me, that includes front office staff, school office staff, and maybe not necessarily the lunch people, but the paras and all of that as well.
There are some districts that require that every year, just like we do mandated reporter stuff. It's, you know, it evolves a little bit because things always change, but I go through it every year, and it is of a benefit.
And the training itself evolves too, right? As time moves forward, receiving the same training year after year, it really becomes a little bit stagnant.
Bloodborne pathogens.
Oh my gosh, we're just talking about that tonight.
ABC. That's the multiple choice test.
Don't
You get
touch
the
that.
answers.
You get me. Don't touch blood.
There's also a group at the high school working on NEAS this year, which will take up a significant chunk of any of their professional
Right.
learning time, so.
Yeah.
That.
We're
may
even
need to
looking
be
at the
in
100%, was the 100% effective? Was what they received helping them, have those conversations? I think tailoring things to our district, we are unique in that we don't have the diverse staff to have those conversations. We don't have the peer-to-peer conversations on a teaching level, asking, how would you handle this? And I think looking at the training, even though it's at 100%, are we meeting the needs of our teachers and our staff? Is important. Engagement, the goal is the same. Objectives, host community conversations with members of the board twice annually, starting in 2024-2025 school year. I think it's a good goal as a minimum. I think we'll probably want to do more than that with this upcoming year. Establish and conduct Board of Ed office hours monthly at various schools. I know at least 3 of us have been okay with partaking in those as long as they're under a quorum. We don't have to post those legally, but we want to be able to make sure that we're in all the buildings, even if we're doing some board work or student achievement. A couple of people from student achievement want to do an office hour and get some of the student achievement work done. If no one comes, it's kind of twofold, and we can meet with whoever we need to, but also get some board work done. This public community newsletter, we just talked about this one. Want to make sure it's no less than twice annually. I think we were looking at quarterly, but as a goal, making sure that we at least 2. Invite community members to join board committees as non-voting members. I want to look at that next month, put that on the agenda to add for student achievement. We'll likely want some on the climate committee that we formed, the ad hoc committee for that, as well as I'd like to look at putting a community member or 2 on policy as non-voting members. We have some really active community members that can help us on a policy standpoint. So I think
Can I ask if is Bronwyn still doing?
Ron, no,
student achievement?
she moved.
Oh.
I believe she moved. She's teaching at the Independent Day School now. We can look at that and put it out to the community. I'm sure between us all, we'd have some great suggestions for some community members. Number 5, board and administration, communication and participation at PTO, booster meetings and events. Want to make sure that we are actively communicating with the boosters and PTOs. We did a good job this year meeting with them and knowing who they are and knowing that they can communicate back and forth with us. Communicate regularly with parent and community booster organizations of athletics, music, and the arts programs. We're going to do this, I think, in a couple ways. And we've been talking with Deb and Katie on how we can get some student representation from those groups. Similar to what we had when we had our reporters, but it would also be good if we can, we don't have much communication, with POPs and robotics, those clubs, and make sure that that anything that the board can do to support them. Number 7, leverage CAVE resources to enhance board functioning. We've done a lot of really good work with CAVE this year. They are going to get us some information and packets on how we can utilize all of their resources. Evaluate and establish board communication to enhance parent and community engagement. And we're working on that part of the website and the social media. And 9, evaluate and establish ways to increase public relations in K-12. So this is number 9 was added. We want to take, I think it's great for us to take a look at how we market the district, how we do it at an elementary level, middle and high, and have a little bit more consistency on a public relationship level, from athletics to our academics to our clubs and organizations. Do we have any questions or changes for engagement?
The only question is it intentional that we have left out pre-K? We have K-12 a lot, but we don't have pre-K.
Not intentional.
Yeah, I think we should put it
on all of them.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think-
there could be a reason in a couple of them not to, but I suspect it would be appropriate for all of them.
Yeah, I don't see any issue with that. You guys okay with that?
Yeah.
Good catch. Fiscal oversight goal stays the same. And a couple of these were just reworded, ensure that the Memorial School project design and construction stays within budget and bonding when approved. 2, ensure that the swing space construction and programming is adequately addressed in the budget and bonding. 3, establish a responsible capital plan for the district's current and planned infrastructure needs and recommend financing approach. And during the budget process, include connections to themes and goals of the district and strategic plan. Any changes on fiscal? John?
You notice that most of these goals and objectives, it's except for engagement, it requires staff to participate. And so while they're board objectives, it really requires a lot of input from all of the staff and all the faculty to get some of these things done. Engagement is mostly our work. And it will take a lot of our work because we haven't done much of this stuff. And so, and budget is just Kim, and he already knows I'll do all that stuff.
Most of our goals end up checked off with fiscal.
Yeah, so that one's on you. Thank you.
Yeah. So, if we want, we can make a motion to approve with the changes we just discussed.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second by John. We did our discussion. If there's additional discussion. Nope. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained. Awesome. I promise not to bring this back next month. Now that it's done. Okay, we have moved on to policy review. Bob's back.
The first one is the use of our facilities, and Meg didn't like the title. Regional District 13 properties, but the title is really use of school facilities and multi-purpose track and field. So that's the title that we designed the policy. We recommend to keep the current policy, but which includes some exemptions for people who have to pay for certain things. But because of the new facilities, the lights, the regulations, which are following the first page, are really what's really sets the fees. And I think we should adopt the policy, but leave the regulation, the fee schedule in the regulations, so that we can adjust them without having to go take 2 months to adjust the fees. And have the regulations brought back by the superintendent, you know, whenever we need to make an amendment. We've added fees for the use of the field at night. We've added fees for the use of the lights, depending on if you're a resident, non-resident. Up the bathroom use, basically for resident and non-resident. And we've got vendor permit and require custodian at all events, and have that paid for by the user. So those are the main ones. Kim, anything else?
No, and I think on this one too, I want to say Patty and Kim have done an amazing job at recognizing the investment to this athletic complex and what we need to be careful of from a perspective of safety, upkeep, damage, and to be able to have all, like, historically trying to figure out, you know, who has access to what, who owns what, our concession booths to the announcer's booth. And I think it's been amazing to see Patty and Kim get all of this together. And the best thing we can really do is communicate to the public what our facility is used for, what community groups can use it based on what fees, and have that out there. So
We've also put some conditions in it on the regs on the timing have been consistent with our settlement agreement. about the time we put in, you can't use a drone without prior approval and with insurance. Because we had drones flying over on the practice,
Football scrimmage.
yeah. And the vendors are prohibited except in connection with approved fundraiser. You need prior application and proof of insurance. And can't have food on the track, no food trucks on the premises, concession stand is not available. One of the things that we found out is that the concession stand is owned by the district. Was put in by Ted Morrow years ago. And a lot of the booster clubs have taken control of it. And we need to take control back and require who's working there and what are the conditions of working there, and if they're safe and clean, right? Anything else, Kim? So those are in the regs. The policy just says we're gonna charge for this stuff.
So who are we thinking as far as taking over control of the concessions?
You.
Yeah.
So
Is it a DECA thing maybe, or?
it's
I think it'd be a good opportunity for a DECA to,
Yeah, so historically, it was hard to even know like who had control of what. There's a lot of different booster clubs that have different equipment inside that concessions group. The spirit of it would be to have it so that it's available for anyone to rent and be able to use through the district. There's still a lot of things that need to happen and structuring. And if we're going to require all of the equipment to come out of the concessions booth, then we have to look at budget for this upcoming year and say, do we have it in the budget? Do we want to put it in the budget to outfit the concessions so that it's district equipment? So when somebody rents the concession stand, they're renting it from the district and they can use the equipment within there, and that it's safe, that it's compliant, that it's the health department has been inspected. We just want to make sure that this complex stays.
our investment is
Yeah,
protected.
the investments.
But the
They're
kids
just-
can't cook it. You have to have adults cook it if you're gonna cook.
Yeah, and so the athletic director was the original person who did a fundraising campaign to get the concessions booth and then the ticket booth and the storage on anything that's like a Cloder Farm building in that complex was done by them. So then it was donated through them to the district. But there is equipment, the football club has equipment in there. The youth football team has the freezer in there. So we'll just let Kim update us and let us know how that's going. There's still some moving parts on that one.
Yeah,
But it would be neat, DECA's our business club, for them to be able to run concessions for some events would be really neat.
It's also a coach.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the policy is short, the regs are long, and I think we gotta understand that. Move that policy along for the first read. Item B is the Title IX sex discrimination and harassment for staff or personnel. This is a new one by Shipman. It amends the current one and it adds basically some names and it has sex-based harassment. That's a new item. And it has a number of changes in the regs as well, so.
And those all comply on state statute.
Yeah, it's all based on the statute. So that's basically it, using the Shipman one, which includes under statutory requirements. The next one is the administration of medications, and this is new because it adds Narcan to the medications allowed by teachers or nurses, and it has rules on how that can be applied. And so I think that's probably the biggest change in that. It's adding a whole section on the use of Narcan for opioid. So that's new. It adds quite a few pages to medications. Any questions, just yell. The next is child sexual abuse and assault response policy. we're recommending keeping the current one. It wasn't that old and it seems to cover all the current requirements. The next is the concept and roles in student policies. We think this is not really a policy and are recommending deleting it. It's just kind of a statement of nice stuff. So we recommend deleting it.
Goes along those same ones that we've been deleting that are like philosophies and policies, which are in spirit kind of cute at the time, but they don't really have any real policy reason.
The next is dress and grooming. We're recommending keeping the current one. Although I think this could have a lot of discussion if we brought it back to the students, and Deb liked it and felt that she could continue to enforce it based on this.
The spirit was that it would give, it gives leeway to the administrators to, police it, so to speak, and without having, harsh guidelines. Inconsistent.
Next is the grading policy, and recommending keeping that as well. It goes through a B- from 1.66 to A+ is 5.33 on the AP, and for college prep from 0.66 to 4.33, or B- to A+. That's just a list. The health assessment and screening. And we're recommending also no change in that, that. Any questions on that? The next is improve the policy to improve completion rates for the free application for federal student aid in FAFSA. This is strange because it requires us to have every student apply, and they can get a waiver if they're 18, and otherwise they need a waiver from their parents not to apply for this, and we have to keep track of our applications, and good luck. And this is a state new federal law.
This seems like this goes along with the graduation policy, which we're gonna talk about student achievement. This is more or less the measures we take to try to get parents to fill it out.
It just seems a way for the feds to get more data.
Right, and so there's certain things that we took the shipment policy, and we'll do our very best, pretty much with that. For the policy says, but that's one of the things we have to get into the graduation. Policy piece, because that's not in there currently, so we're off, but that will make it work.
Do you want to consider it with the other one, or just keep it separate? I mean,
No, I
right now,
think you might as well
it's
keep
right
it separate, then you don't have to bring it
because
back.
Requirement.
Yeah. The weird requirement, but.
Yeah.
Well, I got it.
Yeah, we had a lot.
John's listening.
It is a daunting process. And so if you are not familiar with the process, this improves first generation families getting their kids into college. And so in especially urban districts, this has been a requirement for years, and they have one-on-one, the counselors set up one-on-one with every single family to sit down and fill it out, because it is a very daunting task if it's the first time you're going through it. So it's not, it's about improving the percentages of first generation kids getting into and matriculating into college.
So it has validity. It has validity.
100%. Yeah, well, to be honest, so what John just said, attach it to capstone, and in one of the schools that I taught in, every senior took a class, and in that class, they had to write the essay, their application essay, they had to apply for FAFSA, they did their capstone, and there was one their resume, they had to create their resume, and every single senior in the school did that.
We currently have, our counselor that does go through it with all of the juniors and seniors.
Yeah.
I think that's part of Thursday night too, right? Isn't it Thursday night seniors?
It'll be touched.
It will be touched on there, but it
It
it's
continues
taught,
from that.
yeah, with the learners themselves.
Look at that. A mandate that has validity.
Yeah, well, it is unfunded.
So, the next one is the non-resident. Students. The recommendation is to adopt version 2 of the CAVE policy. It's in the second page of looking at it. It's 518 version 2. And that would basically is consistent with what we're doing now. We can charge them $24,000 or $27,000 for tuition if they like. But it basically is allows kids to stay, finish their senior year in high school and a few other stuff, but it's pretty restrictive otherwise. So that's the same, and it so it would be the version 2 on the policy. The next is participation in extracurricular activities. We basically recommend to keep the current policy. And you can't fail 2 courses and you have to have a 1.66 C- average to get in to play.
We had a good discussion with Deb, and I think that was in consultation with Todd, and they felt that this policy and the wording really helped them not only hold kids accountable for their academics, but also give leeway for growth and change.
The next is physical restraint and seclusion of students under, and it's 5144. They're saying that's okay, then keep it. We didn't see any reason to go to the shipment and go like that. We got it fairly recently changed. You okay with that, Jen?
Yeah.
The next is search and seizure by Shipman is a new one. We have the current one, but they're recommending to adopt the Shipman one. And also there's a provision in the regs for the use of trained dogs, and we recommend to keep that in there as well. It's crossed out on the version you may see, but we're recommending to keep that in the case we need it for firearm, drugs, whatever. It's only would be used in regular scare case, but there are those incidents. So that would we would recommend the shipment one, and it adds the use of dogs if necessary. The next one is section policy regarding section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 and Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And we are recommending no change to keep that as it is. No problem with that, Jen?
Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
Oh, I was in
I think it was the same.
On the
There
ADA
was
one.
no change.
ADA.
Yeah.
We had the update.
Yep.
Also on wellness, we recommend to keep that as well. One of the things the current policy calls for advisory council. I know there's some level that we talked about whether or not we need to get more involved in that advisory council and how that will work. So it probably will go well with our well-being goal, and we can figure out how to, play a role. It's not just on nutrition, but it's on, this is a lot of it's only on nutrition, but there are other things involved as well. I recommend you keep the current one. And the sunscreen, this is the shipment one.
It's
this one
amazing to me
is
that this is a
dark.
policy.
We said the same thing.
No, it just amazes me that this is a policy.
Apparently somebody
Yeah.
had something,
Yeah.
something got sued or something, but, I think this ought to be looked at under regs, because I think if you're 18 years old and you're playing out a sport outside in tennis, you probably can put the sunscreen on yourself without asking permission, you know, having a form. Maybe makeup in the future, but I thought this is kind of extreme, but, it's apparently the new requirements under general spec.
Kate made a really good point too, and it was after policy, so maybe something we just wanna look at is that most lotions and makeup that isn't indicated as sunscreen still has sunscreen in it. So are we now allowing kids to put on makeup, whether it's like SPF 15? So I think Bob's right. I think we need to look at it and just.
Well, you have to.
It's specific to sunscreen, but
Board
it
has
doesn't.
to have written. Parent or guardian must sign the board's written authorization. So the board has to develop a form for us to administer. So
We wanted to send back to policy so then we can get some. We figured we'd have to talk about that one again.
you want to, you don't have to adopt this one. We can spend some time with our people and figure out if there's a better way to handle this.
Yeah, I'd move
I'd like
out.
to talk to Shipman about why they think this is important.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Moving it out of the first read, not for a second read.
So we'll delete this from the first read.
Or just not move it on to a second read, yeah.
You can throw this to student achievement as well.
Sure. Keep throwing it in the student achievement. We're trying to live from the hours we spent, not command it.
We're just up at another hour.
Well, that would take a long time. And the last,
Staff plus the other.
yeah, the last is the Title IX, sexual discrimination and harassment. It's the changes that were made in the law. Now we recommend they adopt the shipping policy. It's basically the same as the one we adopted for personnel. That's in the policy. First read, don't get to vote on it for another whole month. Next time will be quicker. And one of the reasons that we're talking about having second reads and voting on the current policies, even though we're not changing them, is so that we have reviewed them in 2024. So that they'll be all recommended in the future that these were amended in 2024, so that we know that they're all current. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any reason to vote.
Yep.
Thank you.
Policy was working really hard last meeting, so good to get through those. All right, with that, I'll move on to public comment. I don't see any in-person public comment. Do we have any online public comment? If you want to raise your hand, go ahead. If you just want to unmute. Okay, I don't see any. When, with that, Dr. Darcy.
Move to adjourn.
You have a second, John?
Second.
Second by John. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all.